Hey there, welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm excited to share some onion soup mix recipes with you. My stepdad used to incorporate this into a lot of recipes as a kid, so now I like to use it sometimes as well. I really hope that you enjoy them. Onion soup mix adds such good flavors into these recipes, so let's go ahead and get started and I will show you what I made. First up today, we're going to make some burgers with caramelized onions. And I chose to make this for you today because this is something that my stepdad used to do all the time, adding 1 pound of ground beef with 1 packet of onion soup mix. And we always thought it was so good, so that's why we're making this today. After I get that added in, I'm just going to get it all mixed up and divide it into 4 equal sections. Once they're pretty equal in size, I am just going to patty those up and get them ready to cook. I'm also going to go ahead and cut up some onions. If you have 1 to 2 large onions, that'll work perfect. My onions were so small though, so I went ahead and used 4 small onions, just slicing those up, and we're going to add them into this skillet with 1 tablespoon of butter and 1 tablespoon of olive oil. I did let that heat up before adding in the onions, and then I added a couple shakes of salt and pepper. I'm going to let this cook for right around 40 minutes on a low heat. Over those 40 minutes, these are going to get nice and tender and get some really good color to them. Since my husband wasn't home on this night, I went ahead and just decided to cook these in a skillet and skip the grill, but normally I would love to have them on the grill. I cooked those for about 3.5 minutes on each side, and then once they were done, I went ahead and took a spoonful of my onions, add that right to the top of each one of those, and then top it off with a piece of cheese. I'm using provolone today, but you could use any cheese that you prefer. I stuck a lid on here and just kind of let those melt for about 30 seconds to a minute with the heat turned down on a very low heat. Once the cheese had melted, I just went ahead and moved those over to my cutting board. In the same skillet that I cooked my onions in, I'm taking just a little bit of butter, you don't need a lot, and now I'm adding in my buns. I am just doing this to brown up the insides of the buns a little bit. You could also just throw these in a toaster if you wanted to, or if you were grilling, add them onto the grill. Once they had some color, I just removed them. It only took about a minute or 2. And then I added my burger right on there. You don't really need to add any extra toppings to this unless you want to. I like it just as it is. And then I just went ahead and cooked up some French fries in my air fryer. And then this is how we enjoyed this meal. Next, we are going to make some onion soup mix meatloaf. My husband is not a big meatloaf fan, so I don't make it too often, but I really love it. I preheated my oven to 350 degrees. We are taking 1 pound of ground beef with 1 egg and 1 package of onion soup mix. I was just measuring it for future reference, so just ignore that. I'm also adding in 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, 3/4 cup of Italian breadcrumbs, a 1/2 cup of milk, 1 teaspoon of garlic, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and then I just used my hand, got in there and got that mixed together really well. Just be careful not to over mix this because it will affect the texture in the end. So once it is just combined, I am just going to divide that in half. You can make this into 1 large meatloaf, of course, if you want to. However, just to speed up the cooking process, I'm making it into 2 smaller ones. Into this 8x8 baking dish, I went ahead and just sprayed that down with some nonstick spray, and now I'm dividing that meatloaf into 2 equal loaves. Before this goes in the oven, we are going to make the ketchup topping, and this is my favorite part. I love making this to go on top of meatloaf. My mom always used to just put ketchup, and I really didn't like that much. But once I got older and started making it on my own and I made this for the first time, I was sold forever. I just take a 1/4 cup of brown sugar and a 1/2 cup of ketchup. I mix those together until it's nice and smooth, and then I cover my meatloaves with that mixture. I take the spoon and just kind of spread that around and make sure it drips over the edges just a little bit. I put this in my oven and let it bake for right around 45 minutes, and this is what it looked like coming out of the oven. If you want to, you can turn broil on for a minute and it'll really help get that ketchup a little bit more gooey on the top, but it's not necessary. I did just go ahead and slice up that meatloaf to make it easier to serve, and then I made some Italian style green beans and some creamy garlic noodles to go along with it. Now we're making these oven roasted seasoned potatoes. This recipe is beyond easy and a great side dish. For this one, you will need to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. I started by just taking some potatoes and cubing those into bite-sized pieces. I am using about 5 medium to large potatoes, and I did wash and peel those as well. Once I have those all cut up, I'm adding them into a large bowl and adding in about 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Before adding any seasoning in here, I want to mix these up and get them covered with that oil. Then I'm adding in 1 package of the onion soup mix, a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and about a 1/4 teaspoon of parsley. Get that mixed together and then we will transfer it over to a baking sheet. Make sure that you spray your baking sheet down really well with some nonstick spray, or just add some olive oil straight to the pan. I just use my fork to try to even those out as much as possible before putting them into the oven. To start these off, we're putting them in the oven for 15 minutes. At that 15-minute mark, I am just taking them out and just going to move them around a little bit, make sure I flip them all over. If they're sticking too bad, you can add some more olive oil on here. Honestly, mine weren't sticking bad enough to where I worried about it, so I got them mixed up and then put them back in the oven for 15 more minutes, or until they come out fork tender and a little crispy on the edges. Here is what they looked like on my plate in the end. These potatoes are so simple. I have made these before and showed them in a video, but I don't think I actually showed the recipe on here. I just made them as a side dish. I made these with this broccoli, and then I also made some French onion pork chops on this night as well, which is our next recipe. I preheated my oven to 400 degrees for this one as well. And then over here to my cutting board, I have 5 pork chops, and then into this back bowl I have 1 beaten egg. And in this front bowl I am adding 3/4 of a cup of Italian breadcrumbs, along with 1 package of that onion soup mix. After getting that combined, you can go ahead and start adding the pork chops right into the egg. Make sure it's covered really well and be sure to shake any excess off. After the egg, you'll just move it over to that breadcrumb mixture and make sure you cover it really well. I just repeated that process with all 5 of my pork chops, making sure to pat on the breadcrumbs really well with each one. Now I'm just going to move all these pork chops over onto this little baking sheet. I did add some parchment paper to it to make sure that they would not stick. And then after getting them on here, I'm going to take the rest of that breadcrumb mixture and just kind of sprinkle it over the top of each one. Before this goes in the oven, I am going to take some of this avocado oil and just spray the tops of these, that way they brown up in the oven. These baked for right around 10 minutes in my oven. This is what they look like coming out. They were lightly browned on the top, cooked all the way through, and they were just perfect, juicy pork chops at this point. Like I said, I served them with those potatoes, broccoli, and then we really like to have sour cream on top of this. We dip the potatoes and the pork chops in the sour cream, and it just finishes off this meal so well. Thank you guys so much for watching today and coming back for another video. Don't forget to leave your flour down in the comments below if you made it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you guys back here on Sunday with a new video. Bye!